Convenience. That's what the digital dollar will offer us. Convenience. And it certainly won't mean that our money tap gets turned off at any moment if you ever say anything that people don't agree with. They are piloting CBDCs. The digital dollar is on its way. When it was Bitcoin, it was bad. Now that it's Britcoin, it's fantastic. 130 countries are ready to launch their own forms of CBDCs. And many of us have been fascinated by cryptocurrencies for a little while now. But in many cases, that was because they were decentralized opportunities for us to trade without central regulatory authorities stepping in, taxing, controlling, limiting, mitigating, directing. Guess what they've done now? They're seizing control of cryptocurrencies. Let's have a look at this and see, crucially, if we can stop it. The Federal Reserve Bank of New York's Innovation Center recently concluded a 12-week experiment in cahoots with the banking behemoths such as Citigroup Inc. and Wells Fargo & Co. Now, it sounds to me like the Fed and some powerful private banks have worked out how to monopolize digital currency. I'm sure it's not that, though. Let's have a look.
Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell told the House Financial Services Committee in March that the Fed had already begun testing a digital dollar.
What we're doing is experimenting in kind of early stage experimentation. How would this work? Does it work? What's the best technology? What's the most efficient?
It's really weird because even that isn't quite true, is it? Because it's already proven effective. That's why they're even looking into it, because of the success of Bitcoin and numerous other cryptocurrencies. Let me know in the comments below which ones you're already using. They're like, oh no, we've had the phase where we try and stop it. We've had the phase where we smear it and discredit it. Now we're into the phase where we're going to have to control it. It's a kind of recognizable paradigm. Even though digital currencies are by their nature innovative and new, what we're watching now is the colonization of that space. Oh no, they're going to do it anyway. Quick, get control of it. Smear, discredit, shut down the opponents, and get control of it.
Just like paper dollars, a central bank digital currency, or CBDC, would be issued by the Federal Reserve. Those pushing for it say it would have several advantages over physical money. They say it could be used to fight inflation because the Fed would have more direct control over the money supply.
What I want at this time more than ever is for the government and government institutions to have more control over my life than at any point in history. I mean, they're using that power and control so well.
It could speed up transaction payments and help fight money laundering.
Of course, that would mean that it could facilitate social credit scores. It would mean that the government, like in the trucker protests in Canada, will be able to shut down your bank accounts. There's been claims in the UK that people have had their bank accounts shut down or controlled. Obviously, the fear is that this will be used to grant control that will then be used injudiciously against you.
The ability to track transactions has a couple of elements that are very attractive to economic policymakers. One is to know where people are spending their money.
I don't want you to know where I'm spending my money. And you mind your own business.
Backers say the U.S. needs a digital dollar if it wants to remain the world's reserve currency. Opponents warn that it could be a very effective instrument of government control. Physical money has been called one of the last bastions of privacy. Laws like the Bank Secrecy Act have already stripped away most of the privacy from bank accounts and financial transactions.
Banks have really a ton of power that people don't realize to shut down accounts, to freeze accounts, and to end up holding them for really any number of reasons.
Any number of reasons. What's the number? I don't know. I thought you were good with numbers. Numbers isn't my thing. I like control.
Currency expert James Rickards says a digital currency would move America closer to a totalitarian state.
Good news, everyone.
If I buy anything, the government doesn't know it. MasterCard kind of knows it, but even MasterCard uses product codes. So they don't say, Jim bought a Snickers. It says Jim bought miscellaneous merchandise at a retail place. So the government doesn't know what you're doing.
That's interesting. It's yet another way where your private transactions will be tracked, where the information will be bundled up and traded. It sort of seems irresistible to them, doesn't it? Whether it's a commercial entity or a state entity to use data to facilitate control. Private commercial entities will use the data to advertise you. You like Snickers, do you, Jim? How about a great big Snickers? Snickers are on sale. How about a Snickers bedspread and a Snickers lunchbox? How about a Snickers straight up your ass? And the government will be like, if you want this guy to do as you're told, put a trail of Snickers that lead him into this iron box.
But with this new central bank digital currency, they will, because they maintain the ledger. So if I buy, Ron DeSantis' new book, or I go to a Donald Trump rally, or whatever it may be,
That's a confusing morning.
the government, using artificial intelligence and having that information, which they would, are able to profile you. They say, well, this guy kind of looks like a conservative and maybe he's MAGA. And then you've got a target on your back.
Once upon a time, the state had to go through a convoluted dance of data capture in order to get your commercial and private information that social media and private entities had already captured and bundled. Now they'll be able to directly track what you're doing because the currency itself is observable, monitorable. They'll know exactly what you're doing and, of course, presumably be able to prevent it. Where we've been for a while now is the behemoth social media entities have had that data. They've had that information. They understand how long your eyes are lingering on a particular picture, what you've clicked on, where you've gone, what you've searched. All that stuff is evidently being corralled, curated, put together, bundled and sold in a way that's incomprehensible to all but the most literate of us in these new digital spaces. The new precipice that's appearing is that the state and social media are cooperating and conspiring to a degree on how that information is used. And now what's happening is it's being converged and become concomitant with trade and expenditure. Ultimately, that means you can be totally excluded from society, I think. Doesn't it mean that? I mean, let me know in the comments. They'll be able to say, oh, this person went here, went there, does this, does that. I don't think they should be able to participate in elections.
Last year, a Canadian court froze millions of dollars raised for truckers blocking roads to protest COVID-19 vaccine mandates.
When we talk about a globalist new order, a totalitarian state, even I, schooled as I am thanks to you in the world of avant-garde conspiracy theory meets conspiracy fact, even I sometimes think these words seem ridiculous and these ideas seem implausible. We've already witnessed, as this news report responsibly observes, in Canada, bank accounts being frozen, transactions being prevented. Now what we're seeing is a further facility to do that. The old adage that even to me seemed to make a kind of sense, if you've got nothing to hide, you've got nothing to fear, is becoming irrelevant because they decide what's meant by something to hide. You and I might think, well, I'm not a monster, but they might decide, no, we don't like those views, we don't like those opinions, we don't like your affiliations with this media group, we don't like the way you spent money on that. So there's no agreed upon something to hide. That category can be shifted at will.
When the Pakistani government was faced with almost non-stop protest last year, it threatened to switch off the bank accounts of the protesters.
Just think for a moment, that's a country like Canada, who are meant to be, if you're like me, Anglophonic or North European, these kind of advanced post-colonial civilizations. That's a bastion country, Canada, isn't it? It's not even tarnished in the way that the British Empire is or the United States of America are with being a great big force of injustice. Of course, Canada's got its own history when it comes to colonialism or whatever, but it's kind of neutral and kind. They impose those kind of measures. Then you've got a country like Pakistan, a post-imperial nation that was messed up by our country, Britain, that's Islamic identifiably and observably and is sometimes spoken of as being from another world, another time, third world, or whatever language people use these days. And both of them are doing the same thing. Can you not observe now that the tendency and the trend will be further and further cooperation between these territories, the establishment of a global elite that have their own treaties to protect one another, and the rest of us just become chattel, just observable blobs, increasingly unable to determine what can be said, what can be purchased, where we can go. It's all going to be justified. No one's ever going to go on your TV now and just with charisma and a moustache tell you, do as we say. They're not going to do that anymore. They're beyond that. They're at the point where it's going to be for your safety, for your convenience, sit still and shut up.
The digital dollar could not only be switched off, the Fed would be able to force negative interest rates on Americans if it wanted them to spend more, penalizing savers.
Almost everything that we have regarded as solid is becoming diffuse, nebulous, and peculiar. I am a person that's very open when it comes to the way that a person might identify. I think it's the business of the individual. But categories are shifting and melting away. I've got my money in the bank. Oh, no, you don't. I know what is possible to save based on my own intentions. No, you didn't. I'm able to go here or travel or teach my children. I'm afraid not, sir. Everything is up for question. There's a kind of mad, destabilizing nihilism in that. that. If you think how we evolved to live, I'm not talking about right and wrong. Those are difficult concepts for anybody to grasp, even though we all have our personal understanding of what they are. But what I'm talking about is evolution. For hundreds of thousands of years, possibly longer, we lived in small groups where you basically knew everyone and you knew that our shared objective was to survive. This meant it was sensible to look after one another. It was sensible to have a relationship with the environment that was convivial, and also with pre-industrialization and pre-agriculture, that's not even a matter for discussion. It's just an ordinary harmony that exists. Now we're in a space where everything is shifting. No one knows who they are or what they are or what's right and wrong or what it's okay to say or where it's okay to go and what's good and what's bad. Where 1 minute we're being told it's perfectly safe to do this, then we learn it wasn't safe, that you have to stay in your home for these reasons, but actually that wasn't a good idea, that you have to stand this far apart from other people, but that was actually just made up on the spot. Can you see that there is no one in this world that you should be granting that degree of authority to? No one. No one has that right. No one has that understanding. It's impossible to have that understanding.
On the bank-to-bank level, a real-time payment system called FedNow is expected to begin in July. It's not a digital currency, but an upgrade to what some call our antiquated banking system.
FedNow service is an instant payments infrastructure that financial institutions can use to clear and settle payments instantly.
Large bank deposits will be expected to clear much faster than they do now.
Oh, dear old Kevin just patiently standing there in his baker's outfit, little knowing that his bakery is going to be shut down if he dares to do anything that the government disapproves of. Oh, look, I can instantly be, that's right, Kevin, put in jail for having a belief that we didn't like. I'm just trying to make cakes. I don't like cake. Let's see how far along the line to Armageddon we are then. A total of 130 countries representing 98% of the global economy. Oh, let's migrate to that little 2%. They're now exploring digital versions of their currencies, with almost half in advanced development, pilot or launch stages, a closely followed study shows. Almost half are piloting or launching. That means it's almost irresistible at this point. The global push for CBDCs comes as physical cash use falls and authorities look to fend off the threat to their money printing powers from Bitcoin and big tech firms. This is like what's happening elsewhere online. The potential to free yourself exists, so they exert. The potential in independent media is to make mainstream media redundant. Oh no, they don't need us anymore. They're just talking to each other. Ah, shit, shut that down. Censorship, do what you got to do. Say it's hate speech everywhere. Same thing's happening with currency. Oh my God, they're just trading with each other. They're doing stuff all around the world. They're making our nations, our laws, our rules irrelevant. Oh God, do something. Quick, CBDCs. Well, obviously you can't trust these ones. These ones are pirate rogue ones. They're bad for the environment. They'll come up with something to say about the pre-existing ones, so you have to use them. They'll make it illegal, basically, to use anything except theirs, and then they'll shut you down if they don't like you. A digital version of the British pound may feature a way to verify the holder's age and citizenship status, potentially smoothing the purchase of alcohol and tobacco and transactions with government agencies. The clues for how it will be used are already evident, because all it should be is a digital replica of a physical object. Oh, should we just add that we know how old you are and what your citizenship status is? Oh yeah, I suppose that's no trouble. And also we could know how healthy you are and what you believe in. Oh yeah, that would be convenient, I suppose. And whether you took your medicine, just, so we can be sure that you're healthy. Okay. And also, we could have little photographs of your dicky bird. Oh, why'd you need that? We'll tell you later. The Bank of England has hired digital payments platform Nuggets to develop the digital currency's privacy and identity features as policymakers step up preparations for the currency dubbed Britcoin. One R and suddenly it's all fine. Nuggets Chief Executive Officer Alistair Johnson said that he regrets the name of Nuggets, said that its technology would allow verification of a person's citizenship and for purchasing age-restricted products such as alcohol and cigarettes. And even things that we all sort of basically agreed on, like children shouldn't smoke, they sort of slip in. You don't want kids smoking? No, I suppose not. Right, we're going to lock you in your house for 10 years. Like that, it's just sort of suddenly you've agreed to something mad. Social media platforms like TikTok and Snapchat will face possible shutdowns when they don't crack down on problematic content during riots under the European Union's Content Law Digital Service Act, Internal Commissioner Thierry Breton said on Monday. And what are they rioting about at the moment? France passing laws that do not have the consensus of the French population, that advantage globalist intentions rather than the ordinary population of France. They won't be able to discuss that on social media platforms. So censorship laws will prevent conversation. Digital currency laws will prevent transaction. It's a conspiracy theory that we're looking for social credit score. Well, what are these two pieces of legislation legislation then that could be used for that? What's the recent memory of the pandemic where it's already been admitted that it was mishandled, that there was an overreach of the state, that whether intentionally or not, advantaged corporate and state interest? Now you've got new tools that mean that your errors, let's call them errors, that your errors would be more profound and yet more compounded.